Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Chiranjit Mishra. Welcome to today's News Today, in which there are 15 news items, 14 news items, 5 main news and 9 quick updates. So as is customary, let's go through the headlines first. So the first main news is WPI is soon going to be replaced by PPI, Producer Price Index. Then another similar news, Index of Industrial Production, the base year for the same has also been revised. Okay, for WPI also we have revised it and gradually we're going to get rid of it. Then China border strategy in India, which is very important. Recently there was a meeting between the Joint Secretary of India, Ministry of External Affairs, and his Chinese counterpart. As you know, there are several disputed areas between India and China border. Then El Nino threatens monsoon prospects. This is, in a way, it's cliched because so many news, and monsoon prediction has also been revised, downward revision, 90%, but El Nino is going to happen. If not very strong, at least moderate. Then the last main news is about mission Senehjori for Muga silk in Assam. Okay, just to strengthen the supply chain related to Muga silk in Assam. Now let's come to quick updates. The first is about India-Nepal bilateral issues. India has strongly emphasized that bilateral issues have to be resolved bilaterally. No other nations are invited to discuss this. Next, Prime Minister Research Chair Scheme, okay, to reverse brain drain. Then indigenous Rudram 2 missile has been tested by DRDO and Indian Air Force. Next, Indian peacekeepers receive UN medal. The medal has been received because of UN peacekeeping mission in which Indian troops are involved in Sudan. Next, Kaziranga records yellow-throated martel. It's a species the species very similar to mongoose or badger. Lakshadweep's massive potato patch coral. Remember this fact, it's very important from the point of view of prelims. Potato patch coral. Okay. Then bolides or explosive meteor fireballs. Okay. Meteors, as you know, are celestial bodies, meteoroids, which fall towards the earth. But these bolide are like highly energetic meteors. But before reaching the earth's surface, it detonated. Then Israel captures Beaufort Castle in Lebanon. Lebanon is present, it's a Mediterranean country, and as you know, it's infamous for housing or sheltering Hezbollah, and Israel has been constantly chasing Hezbollahs. Last quick update, Bangladesh's Padma barrage and what potential it holds for Bangladesh and challenges for India. Now let's start with the first main news, which is Producer Price Index PPI to replace WPI. Important from the point of view of GS Paper 3 Economics and also prelims. Now several price indices we have been covering for the last 6 to 7 months. Okay, first is Consumer Price Index. Its base year was changed, and there are several consumer price indices for different category of workers, rural workers, okay, industrial workers, and then rural urban combined. Okay, now here we are talking about WPI and PPI. The news has two important facets. One is the base year for WPI has been changed. Base year, the benchmark year, you know, whenever you measure any price or any output, we always choose a base year and we measure the differences by comparing values with the base year. The base year earlier was 2011-12 for WPI. Okay, so it's released by the Ministry of Commerce. Now it has been revised to 2022 and 23. News number one. The second part of this news is, although we are going to produce WPI for the next 5 years, gradually we are going to get it replaced with PPI, Producer Price Index. Now why? Because PPI must be more helpful than WPI. Of course, that is why we are going to replace it. PPI captures price changes at the industrial input level. Okay, WPI at the wholesale level. So as you know, a supply chain starts with, let's assume we are manufacturing some food product. The factory, as soon as it exits factory, it goes to the wholesaler. Okay, wholesaler. This is wholesaler. Then through distributors, then retailers, and finally consumers, you. So earlier we are measuring price at this level. Okay, for example, cost of that product which the factory produces is say rupees 60, and wholesalers buy the product at rupees 60. Now if the price changes to 62, we say there has been an inflation, change in price rise, change in price level, or there is price rise. So this is what WPI measures. Okay, once the product exits the factory. Now PPI is going to focus on how much prices of the different commodities, input raw materials that factory is going to bear. For example, the factory produces say biscuits, it needs wheat, oil, or maybe some milk solids. Okay, the price changes at this level, at the input level, will be captured through PPI. So it starts early in the supply chain or value chain. WPI did not capture the cost changes or the price changes of the inputs. Okay, and IMF has always recommended PPI to be a better measure than WPI. That is why we're going to change it. I hope you understood the gist of the story. Now nothing is very difficult to understand. Year for WPI has been revised, and gradually PPI will replace WPI. Why we need to have a price index, price change index? Because the government can implement schemes, it can take actions. Okay, RBI uses CPI for its inflation targets, and the companies also keep revising their investment level on the basis of the price rise change. They know that consumers are not going to consume a particular product if the price continuously rises. Okay, it continuously rises. So accordingly, they will go for cost cutting, or they will limit their production level. That is why we always need a price index. Price index is very important both for the government and the private sector. Okay, price index. It can be retailers price index, or consumer price index, or wholesaler price index, or PPI, which India is going to adopt. It measures bulk sale price changes, tracks fixed basket of goods. You always need a basket full of goods. Okay, now WPI, why there is this revision needed? Because WPI captures the prices of some old products which are no more in use. For example, people have stopped using less and less kerosene. Now there is LPG in every household, in rural household. We have stopped using CDs. Do you use CDs? We use pen drives. We don't use say ink pens. Okay, that's why time to time revision of the basket of goods is also required. Domestic market transaction based index, released by DPIT's economic advisor. Okay, not the Ministry of Finance economic advisor. It's Department of Commerce. Okay, Department of Commerce, Ministry of Commerce. Okay, key changes in revised WPI. Base year has been revised to this year. Okay, coverage expanded from 697 items to 957 items. That means many modern items have been included, which are not present in the previous WPI level. Solar, wind, nuclear energy added under electricity. Okay, because earlier we still rely upon thermal energy, but we have started using different sources of renewable energy also. Okay, so that is why they have to given place under this new WPI. Crude, petroleum and natural gas shifted category. Earlier they used to come under primary articles. This was their category. Primary articles. Now they come under the category of fuel. Okay. Inflation assessment becomes more realistic, of course, because now we have important products and obsolete products have been removed. About PPI, it measures producer received prices, covers domestic and export sales. Whatever is produced, it's used for domestic consumption or it is exported. Similarly in CPI, whatever was produced here and imported goods. Okay, whatever a consumer requires. Why PPI replaced WPI? It aligns with global best practices. As I said, IMF has always recommended, and all the leading economies of the world, starting from US, UK, okay, Germany, they all use PPI, not WPI. Covers inputs and outputs, includes service sector prices. So that's all. All you need to know is there are two different types of news items. One is replacing WPI with PPI, but not overnight. The replacement is not going to be overnight. It will take some 5 years. So for the next 5 years, the government is going to release both WPI and PPI, and then gradually we will phase out WPI. PPI will become our index to measure changes in price levels. Now another similar news, that's why they have been put together. A new IIP series base 2020-23. Okay, the base year for index for industrial production. Now WPI or PPI measured changes in price level. What does IIP do? IIP measures changes in the output level, not price level, output level, and industrial output. Okay, don't get confused between the indices. The purpose of, so let's see what other changes have been included. Earlier it was just like WPI, the base year was 2011-12. Okay, a question can be asked in the prelims. Okay, recently the base year has been changed from 2011-12 to 2025-26. Is it correct? No, it's 22-23. Reflects current industrial structure. Again, that means taking into consideration the changes of the modern era, we have to change the indices, be it WPI or be it IIP. It reflects current industrial structure, reflects changing industrial dynamics. 10th IIP base year revision. The first was 1937. Okay, when we adopted IIP for the first time, that time the base year was 1937. Then gradually it changed to decadal changes after that, and 9th revision was 2011-12. This was the 9th, and now we have the 10th base year, which is 2022-23. Okay, again expanded coverage just like WPI. Added sectors: gas supply, water supply, sewerage activities included. Mining classification has been changed. Now we are going to make a more precise or granular approach. Okay, we cannot simply blindly put all sources of electricity under one category. We have to separate renewable sources from non-renewable sources. Okay, that will give a better or clearer picture of Indian economy. Yeah, so better mining sector representation. Baskets expanded to 1042 products. If possible, try to memorize the numbers. Sometimes UPSC is asking very factual questions. Okay, so earlier it was, I think, 839 products. Now it is 1042. But this fact is not more important than this one. Okay, after memorizing and revising this fact, you can jump to this one. These are secondary facts, but UPSC is very uncertain. Okay, so earlier it was 839, the number of goods in the basket. Now it is 1042 in the case of IIP. Okay. Certain products have been removed, just like I said: kerosene, fluorescent tubes, CFL tubes, bicycle tubes. Then the production has come down to almost negligible or nil. For example, who manufactures CDs these days? Kerosene is also used less and less. Need for base year change: captures emerging sectors, reflects changing production patterns, reflects evolving consumption trends, aligns with UN practices. Okay, because if you want to compare the status of Indian economy with other leading economies, you need to use the same benchmarks. Only then we can make a fair comparison. Okay. A question was asked in 2015 prelims in the index of 8 core industries. Now under IIP, this index of 8 core industries comprise 40% of the total output. Okay, there are 8 such industries. You can go through the list. Okay, PIB keeps sharing their weightage and the production level. So this question was asked in 2015, and after you answer this question, I'll tell you what is the correct answer. In the index of 8 core industries, which one of the following is given the highest weight? This was in 2015. Let me tell you, that time the correct answer was something else. Now it is something else. Okay, the coal production, electricity generation, fertilizer and steel. That time it was electricity generation. Now the correct answer is not in the option, it is refinery products. Please note, refinery products have the highest weightage, then electricity, then steel. Okay, but in 2015, electricity was the correct answer, B. And now UPSC would have cancelled this question because the correct option is not here. Just like one of the IR question was cancelled this year. Now China border strategy and India. So as you know, India shares a nearly 3500 kilometer long border with China, the second longest border. The longest border, it was already asked this year, is with Bangladesh, followed by China, and then of course Pakistan, land border. Okay, so with China there are several disputed areas. China and India together, in a way, I won't say have accepted the respect the LAC. LAC is not any legally demarcated border, line of actual control. Okay, for example, after the 1962 war, this has served as the de facto boundary. But India and China have not reached any agreement with relation to the demarcation of border. This is de facto. Their troops and our troops, okay, they were divided, or they were in close proximity divided by LAC, line of actual control. And line of actual control actually runs through three areas, starting from, you know, India's, this is your Kashmir, this part, this is called western part or western sector. Then you have Himachal and Uttarakhand, this part. And then you have Arunachal area. So it has three parts, western, middle and eastern. Now China has disagreements with India over all the three sectors. Okay, and Doklam was to the Doklam standoff, which is a tri-junction between India, Bhutan and Tibet Autonomous Region, which is controlled by China. That was also in the news 5 years ago. So border disputes have not been settled yet. And China also believes that the Tawang region of Arunachal Pradesh is China's territory, which has been illegally occupied by India. And India, we strongly believe that Arunachal Pradesh is our territory. Okay. So recently a meeting took place between the Joint Secretary of India of Ministry of External Affairs. It's an annual meeting. So they keep discussing the border disputes and they keep sharing their views. Okay. Because talks are very important. When talks don't happen, then sometimes countries resort to military options. Okay. So to keep the military options in check, you need to talk. That is why India always believes in dialogue. Now let's take a look at the Indo-Chinese border dispute. 35th Working Mechanism for Coordination and Consultation, that is a full form of WMCC meeting, which reviewed border situation, discussed developments along border areas. As you know, the origin of dispute is different perception of the LAC. And LAC came into being in 1962. Don't confuse it with McMahon line. McMahon line is very old and it only deals with the Arunachal part. And this was as per the McMahon Commission, which India accepted but China rejected. Okay, and it dealt with only the Arunachal part. LAC on the other hand deals with all the three parts, but it is not an agreement. It's just like their troops and our troops are divided by a line. They could not march further, we couldn't go beyond that. That is why it is a de facto border. Okay. India's second longest land boundary, as I said, nearly 3,488 kilometers. Only Bangladesh border is longer than that. This time the question came in UPSC prelims. Okay. Johnson line, many commissions and many, you know, surveyor generals, they proposed different solutions, but China rejected, though India was happy. Now, as you know, a small part of Jammu and Kashmir close to Ladakh is under Chinese control, which is called Aksai Chin. It belongs to us as per Johnson line. Placed Aksai Chin within Jammu and Kashmir, but the Chinese dynasty rejected the proposal. It was in 1865. Okay, that is why, because in 1962 war, Aksai Chin came under Chinese control, and it has been so. Macmillan 1914 proposed during Shimla conference. The involved parties were British India, Tibet and China. Boundary proposed from Bhutan to Burma. The entire border between India and China. Okay, so that is also not accepted by China yet, because as per China, Arunachal Pradesh is called South Tibet and is a part of China. Aksai Chin is the western sector, Arunachal is the eastern sector, Demchok Pangsong So region, it's a lake region in the region, and the Doklam Tri Junction. These are the disputed areas. As I said, it can be divided into three parts: western, okay, then your middle and eastern border, India and China. Principles for dispute settlement: preserve the 2005 framework. This is what India should do. Focus on LAC stability and seek political settlement. India has three conditions, and India had always favored China as a very favorable neighbor during the Nehruvian time, but it was a mistake. Okay, it was not well calculated. So in a way, India was deceived by China, and since then there has been some sort of mistrust. Although economic engagement has been very high, the trade volume is very high, but India, when it comes to border management, well, it has not been very quiet. Okay, so India needs, first condition is the border should be peaceful. Only then we can go for settlement. And 2005 framework focuses on two things. One is we have to take into consideration the popular interest. Okay, that means whoever resides close to the borders, their interests have to be taken into account. That is of prime importance. And for that we need to have a precondition, that is peaceful border. Okay, only then we can proceed. So that's it. Now the fourth main news is about mission Senehjori for Muga silk. This is a mission which is the in charge ministry is the ministry concerned with development of Northeast region, the donor ministry. I hope you remember it. The donor ministry. Okay, so as I say, Muga silk is what Assam is famous for. Okay, and now we need to focus upon the consolidation of the Muga silk production, because in Assam, although this is a traditional sector, the productivity has not been very high. Why? Because the production of Muga silk takes place in like isolated manner. There are different small to big cottage industries, and they are functioning in an independent manner. Okay, the productivity can be increased if efforts to consolidate this sector are taken. That means it's going to take a cluster based approach. Okay, because as you know, just like cotton industry, textile industry, silk textile industry also has a value chain, starting from cultivation of or growing silkworms, okay, letting silkworms grow cocoons, and then deriving the cocoons, the threads, refining the threads, producing fabric, and then apparel. So the entire value chain needs to be properly distributed. Okay, like silkworm, and this is, we're talking about Muga silk. Okay, Muga silk is one of the 5 varieties of silk that is produced in India. India produces all the 5 varieties of silk known to the world. Okay, first is mulberry. Mulberry is the most popular silk in India, produced in Karnataka and other South Indian states. Then comes Muga, then comes Tussar, and Tussar is of 2 types, tropical and temperate, and then Eri silk. Okay, so here we are talking about Muga silk, and Assam is the primary producer of Muga silk. 90% of the Muga silk produced in India comes from Assam, and the government through this mission wants to strengthen the value chain of Muga silk. Okay, so let's go through the salient features of this particular mission. Transforming Assam's unique Muga silk sector into high value luxury textile ecosystem. It strengthens entire Muga silk value chain. Okay, Muga silk value chain. That means starting from growing silkworms to nurturing their cocoons, then taking the threads, making fabric, then apparel, and then export. Implemented under M Donor Initiative, not Ministry of Textiles. Please remember, not Ministry of Textiles, but Ministry of Development for Northeastern region. Transform Assam's Muga silk sector, build luxury textile ecosystem, promote host plant cultivation activities. Okay, because now some farmers are in an isolated manner growing silkworms, and then manufacturers, they approach them, they also put in some investment, but it is not done in a, currently it is done in a haphazard manner. The current state is that it is done in an haphazard manner, not systematic. Improve silkworm seed production so that the quality of thread is improved. Targets by 2028, establish 5 modern reeling units, okay, that is related to removal of threads. Set up 1 Muga spun mill, just like in textile you need to spin the fabric, the thread, so that you can produce fabric. And create 30 farmer producer organizations, okay, because farmer producer organization actually is going to give them a unified voice, and they can pool the resources, and they can make better bargains with the industrialists. About Muga silk, world's only naturally golden silk, Muga silk, okay, and India's first GI tagged silk, it received GI tag in 2007. As I said, India produces all the 5 types of silk, okay, Muga, Mulberry. Mulberry is the most popular silk in India, not Muga, it's Mulberry, which is produced in Karnataka. Then comes Muga, then Tussar, and then Eri. And there are 2 types of Tussar, tropical and temperate. So production status, Assam produces 90% of the global Muga silk. Assam remains global production hub. Other types of silk are Mulberry, 92%. Please remember, 92%. It can be asked in prelims exam also. Tropical Tussar, the primary producer is Jharkhand. And temperate Tussar, it is produced from in Kashmir and also in some northeastern states like Manipur. And then Erik, Assam is also famous for Eri. So I hope you understood the 5 types of silk: Mulberry, Muga, 2 types of Tussar, and then Eri. Last news is El Niño, which threatens monsoon prospects. Now you must have come across several facts. Okay, this news is based on the prediction made by World Meteorological Organization, not IMD, Indian Meteorological Department. IMD had said that this time's monsoon is going to be, first it said 92% of the long period average. Okay, as you know, they use statistics to build models, and they say over the last 40-50 years what was the amount of rainfall. So 92% of that long period average, 40 to 50 years average rainfall is going to take place in India. That was the first prediction. Then they went for a downward revision, which is 90% of the long period average. You may think 2% decrease, but 2% matters a lot here. Many crops can be affected, okay, and this is due to the El Nino effect. Now, this was covered earlier. Now the focus is on WMO's new prediction that it is certainly going to intensify, and probability of El Nino taking place of El Nino between June to August is 80%. This probability is not related to monsoon. This is about the possibility of a moderate El Nino. And it has said the El Nino, if it takes place, it will be moderate. Nothing less than moderate, and it can be strong as well. Okay. Now you may see why there are so many ups and downs in prediction. See, studying climate is very difficult. There are so many factors involved. Predicting weather is much more difficult, because weather is actually your diurnal variation in temperature and moisture availability on a daily basis. Climate is a long-term average. So because lots of factors are involved, different meteorological departments and organizations, they keep revising. Likely in coming months, and as you know, El Nino is always associated with another phenomena, which is a normal condition called La Nina, and it is associated with the central or equatorial Pacific. As you know, whenever there is excessive heat, evaporation takes place, and when there is heat above oceans, there will be lots of moistures. Okay, so this is Pacific, this is the South American part, and this is, here you have Australia, and here you have India. Okay, so whenever there is excessive heat, water vapor goes up, and there is a particular wind, steady wind, which is called westerlies, which comes from east towards west. Because of this type of wind or these winds, these moisture bearing winds move here and then they shed here. And there is, because El Nino is actually an ocean atmospheric phenomenon, both the atmosphere and the ocean, which ocean? Pacific Ocean, are involved. So the moment the hot air goes up, it also has a pulling effect. It pulls cold water upward. Okay, and as soon as the vapor moisture laden winds are drawn towards the west, there is upwelling of cold water, which is good for pisciculture or fish farming, and it helps chili. Okay, and this moisture laden winds come here and then they shed in the form of rainfall. So this part, Australia, and also it affects the Indian monsoon, receive hefty rainfall. When the winds are not that strong, that is what happens in El Nino. There is no movement of the moisture laden winds. Whatever moisture laden moisture goes up, it falls down in the form of precipitation here only. There is no westward movement. So in El Nino, there is no westward movement of the moisture laden winds. I hope you understood. And the normal condition, when the winds are strong enough to push the moisture laden air, that is called La Nina. La Nina is good for Indian monsoon. Okay, so El Nino can cause drought in India. This is India's perspective because we're discussing El Nino in the context of Indian monsoon. Okay, and when El Nino takes place, some parts of South America receive heavy rainfall, while India and Australia, they receive drought-like condition. There can be wildfire also. If there is excessive heat, no rainfall. Okay, so that is why El Nino is not in the best interest of India. And El Nino is a name, it's a Spanish name which means little boy, and it is related to, if the question comes, Central Pacific Ocean, Equatorial Pacific. Okay, and it occurs every 2 to 7 years. It's a cycle and lasts for 9 to 12 months. Normally it generates around March to June. Okay, and before that it intensifies later. La Nina means little girl. So little boy, little girl in Spanish. Niña and Niño. And Pacific surface cooling. Okay, La Nina is very healthy when there is good upwelling of colder water, which is good for your fish farming. Central Pacific temperature decreases. It causes below normal monsoon rainfall. Which one? El Nino, not La Nina. You may be confused. Below normal monsoon means El Nino. El Nino is always accompanied, after an El Nino year, you will see La Nina. And La Nina is good for India and India's monsoon. Affects agriculture, water management, possibilities of wildlife. Now recently this is in the news that Mumbai has only 45 days of drinking water left. Okay, so if the monsoon is below normal, so drinking water availability can be a concern. Now quick updates. India-Nepal bilateral issues. For the very first time, the head of the government of Nepal, long time, I think no head of the Nepalese government has ever said that. The recently elected Nepalese Prime Minister, Mr. Balendra Shah, has said that what you are saying, that India has encroached upon Nepalese territories, Nepal has also encroached upon Indian territories. Okay, so that created a furor in the Nepalese parliament. This asked the Prime Minister, how can you say that? We have been saying that India has encroached upon Nepalese territory. How can you say that India has encroached upon, Nepal has encroached upon Indian territory? Okay, and he said whatever territorial disputes are there between India and Nepal, just like we discussed India-China border disputes, here we are discussing India and Nepal border dispute. Whatever disputes are there, they can be resolved not just with the involvement of India and Nepal, but we also need some outside intervention, like UK, because at the time of UK, India-Nepal border was demarcated, Treaty of Sugauli, and China. India said this is not possible. No such discussion is going to take place. This is a bilateral issue. हम दोनों के बीच में है. Only these two parties are the stakeholders. We cannot have outsiders involved. Okay. So this is the first such admission by any Nepalese head of the government differing interpretations of the 1816 Treaty of Sugauli. Just like Macmillan Line and Johnson Commission, Treaty of Sugauli marked the demarcated the boundary between India and Nepal. Okay, but Nepal was not happy with the demarcation. And Nepal shares its land border with 5 Indian states: Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, West Bengal and Sikkim. Very important from the point of view of prelims. Okay. These days map based questions are coming in plenty. And what are the 3 areas which have been disputed? 98% of the border has been accepted by India and Nepal. Only some parts in Uttarakhand, Lipulekh, Limpiadhura and Kalapani. These 3 disputed regions fall in the Indian state of Uttarakhand. Nepal is saying that these Indian territories are mine. Prime Minister Research Chair Scheme. This scheme is run by the Department of Education, Higher Education of Ministry of Education to reverse brain drain. That is the sole motive of this scheme. And it targets Indian origin experts working abroad. That means India makes an appeal to those experts who are settled abroad to come back and join us in our research ecosystem. Okay, that's it. 13 thematic areas have been discovered. Nobody is going to ask you about that. Rudram 2 missile. Rudram 2 missile is actually an air to surface missile. That means Indian Air Force is going to use it. They have fighter aircrafts, and from fighter aircraft they will launch this missile and target areas on land. Okay, it has been developed. The Rudram 1 was developed by, I think, Bharat Digital Limited, and also DRDO played a role. This but has been conducted, the flight test was conducted by DRDO and IAF. Okay, Indian Air Force and DRDO. Rudram, it's an air to surface missile, remember, air to is. And launched from, while this test was conducted, this particular fighter craft was used, Sukhoi 30 MK. Tested under extreme release conditions, achieve pinpoint target accuracy. So Rudram 2 अगर पूछा था क्या है, is it a tank or anti-tank missile or a radar, submarine, what is it? It is a missile which can be launched air to surface. Okay, and it's not going to be used by Indian Army. It is going to be used by air to surface, means Indian Air Force. Surface to air होता तो could have been anything. Navy हो सकता था, Army भी हो सकता था. Indian peacekeepers receive UN medal for this peacekeeping. I forgot to add one question which was asked this year. So many random United Nations peacekeeping missions, pair question wala aaya tha. You don't need to memorize all. It's very difficult, you need to leave such questions. But if a question is asked, UN medal was awarded to which particular, was awarded to Indian troops involved in which of the following UN peacekeeping missions? UN miss. This is related to South Sudan. Okay. India remains the, and they can also ask you a question. India is one of the major suppliers of troops for peacekeeping mission. One of the major, but not the top supplier. It used to be. Now, the top supplier is actually Nepal. They send their armed personnel to United Nations missions, followed by, I think, it's Rwanda, then Bangladesh. I also had to memorize, and then India. India is at number 4, but still one of the major suppliers. Okay, Nepal, Rwanda, Bangladesh and India. I hope you understood. They send their domestic troops, to UN peacekeeping missions, because United Nations does not have a standing army. It seeks support from other countries. Okay, please send your troops for different peacekeeping missions. Kaziranga records yellow-throated marten. Before I cover this news, you need to see and understand how yellow-throated marten looks. You may think it's a butterfly or it's a bird or a reptile or a frog. This is a mongoose-like creature, just like honey badger. Okay, yellow-throated. But it is not critically endangered or vulnerable. Its IUCN status is least concerned, and it has been, it's a rare finding in Kaziranga. Okay, Kaziranga is in Assam, famous for one-horned rhinoceros. It belongs to this family, Mustelidae family, to which I think badger and other animals belong. Identified through camera trap surveys. It's called marten. Marten. Least concern, remember its category, okay? Lakshadweep's massive potato patch coral. So potato patch coral, again you need to take a look at the picture. This looks, this is actually coral reef, a single colony, not a reef, not many colonies, a single colony of potato shaped corals, okay? That is why the name potato patch. And it has been discovered in Lakshadweep, maybe one of the biggest coral reefs, okay? And as you know, coral reefs are in a way the tropical rainforests of the oceans. They provide shelter to different types of marine creatures, okay? May rank among the world's largest, but if a question is asked in the prelims exam, कि potato patch coral reef was discovered in which of these following regions, say Western Pacific, Indian Ocean, Lakshadweep, or maybe close to Maldives, the answer is Lakshadweep, okay? The location is marine, so they may ask you about either an island which is in close proximity to this particular reef or oceans or seas. Next, bolides. Bolides are types of meteors. I hope you can differentiate between a meteor, a meteoroid and a meteorite. So very easy. Meteoroid are those celestial bodies, okay? Just like asteroids, they are part of the solar system. Meteoroid. Once they have left their orbits and moving towards Earth, they become meteor. Meteoroid is the normal state. They follow specific path and they're part of space. Once they reach the Earth's atmosphere, they become meteoroid. Meteor. Okay, atmosphere. And once they reach the surface of the Earth, they are called meteorite. Whatever the remaining parts of meteor, they reach the surface of the Earth, they become meteorite. Why some parts they cannot reach in whole? Whole means in their complete form, because there is a lot of friction, fire is generated, and many meteors, before reaching the Earth's surface, they simply get extinguished. They're burned to ashes. That is what happened to this bolide. A bolide is actually an exploding bright meteor, okay, of high intensity. But it caught fire and got burnt up in the middle of the atmosphere. It could not reach Earth's surface. That means Earth's atmosphere is playing a very important role, not just in providing important gases to us, but also stopping from certain celestial bodies from reaching the surface of the Earth. And bolide, remember the name, is an excessively bright meteor, and it had the potential of causing explosion of 300 tons of TNT. TNT is your trinitrotoluene, a very important and popular explosive used in demolition. Building को तोड़ने के लिए हम TNT use करते हैं, okay? And 1 ton TNT is enough to destroy one big building. One big building को तोड़ने के लिए काफी है. Imagine the power of 300 tons of TNT, okay? Now, Beaufort Castle, the castle is in Lebanon. Remember, place in the news and country. And what happened? As you know, Israel has made one of the deepest incursion in the territory of Lebanon. Lebanon के साथ पंगा क्या है? And Lebanon is in a way very closely related to this Iran issue. Now peace talks or negotiations are going on between US and Iran. Iran says if that Hezbollah thing is not taken care of Lebanon, if Israel keeps attacking Lebanon, negotiations are not possible. Because Israel is frantically, getting further and further into the Lebanese territory. It has already captured a major part of southern Lebanon, and Beaufort Castle is part of that. Because now Hezbollah, a terror group, which Israel says, okay, just like Hamas and Fatah, they have captured the power dynamics of Lebanon. That is why Israel constantly attacking. Deepest Lebanon incursion in 26 years. The castle overlooks southern Lebanon. Troops advanced near Nabatea. So these places are related to Lebanon, Beaufort Castle and Nabatea. Last piece of news, Padma barrage. Barrage means a small dam, the intention of which is not to generate electricity. You must have seen a river flows like this, and there is a small barrier through which water flows. It controls the flow of river, sometimes it diverses water also. And this barrage is going to be constructed by Bangladesh on Padma river. And Padma is which river? Ganga river, which flows through Bangladesh. Ultimately, Padma joins with Brahmaputra, which in Bangladesh is known as Jamuna, not river Yamuna. It's basically Brahmaputra. And they together form the world's largest delta, the Sundarbans or the Ganges Brahmaputra delta. So Bangladesh is going to construct a barrage on Padma river for its own purpose, for its own good, to divert water for agricultural purposes and to regulate its flow. Also, you can control floods. Okay, excessive water can be controlled, but it can have an impact on the Indian side, because although Ganga originates in India, but a part of it flows through Bangladesh and then it flows to the Bay of Bengal. Okay, so certain parts, because towards the mouth of the river, okay, there are plenty of distributaries. Okay, so those distributaries also flow back to India. That can be affected. Okay, so aims to improve water regulation intended to support irrigation needs may affect shared river systems. Very complicated. Plenty of rivulets flow through that region. Okay, all you need to know is that Padma is nothing but river Ganga flowing through Bangladesh, which joins with Jamuna to form world's largest river delta. So that's all for today. Now try to make the most of digital current affairs of Vision Eyes to enrich your knowledge. And now 6 questions will appear on your screen. Do take them. Wish you all the very best.